Introduction. Batak belongs to the family of languages called Malayo-Polynesian, specifically to the Western Main Division, which is distinguished from the Eastern Main Division by a stronger phonetic system. The Western Main Division can again be divided into two sections, a consonantal and a vocalic. In the consonantal are placed the languages which have a consonant as the closer of a word. In the vocalic, those which have only a vowel at the end of the word. To the vocalic belong, for example, Nias and Malagasy, though in the latter the end vowel of word is almost mute. Lalana, Wei, Jav, and Bat and Batak Dalan. To the consonantal Batak, Malay, Javanese, the languages of the Philippines, and others that are not yet accessible to an intermediate kind, which can be called semi-vocalic, belong languages such as, for example, Minangkabau, Akasares, and Bugines, which permit only a few consonants as closures of a word. Makasares and Bugines have as closures of a word only the guttural nasal and the imperfect pronounced k, which we express with a q. Minangkabau has as closures of indigenous words only the q, the h, the nasals, with the exception of n and of softly bugged r r. Borrowed words such as barat from Malay, bakat from Arabic, being adopted words are accepted. Batak, as the language of uncivilized people, is especially poor in words which can express the general and very rich in those that define the particular. For example, it has no word for monkey in general, but it has a name for its particular kind of monkey. The common word for the general is derived from the specific. The word for bird, for example, is derived from fall, which can be said or languages. There, there are three main dialects: Toba, Mandaling, and Dairi. Toba is further divided into two Toba and Sub-Toba, which, according to the degree to which it tends towards Mandaling or Dairi, is different again. Mandaling is divided into North Mandaling, also called Angkola, and South Mandaling. It is not yet possible to define the precise boundaries of these dialects. With regard of the west coast of Sumatra, it can safely be said that Mandaling extends from the Ophir or Pasaman Mountains southward to the northerly boundaries of Sipirok and Batang Toru. There is spoken in the north and northwest of Barus and also in Singkil and its hinterland. Toba predominates to the east and northeast of Sibolga, Barus, Sorkam, Suham, in Sindung, and in the territory situated near Lake Toba, Tau. Concerning the east coast, we know from reports from elsewhere that two dialects are spoken in the hinterland, the one being Dairi and the other Toba. In Anderson's mission to the east coast of Sumatra, Toba is called Pandembanan and Dairi Karo Karu, the letter being the Malay pronunciation of Karo, the name of territory where Dairi is spoken, while the former means the place where Demban is present, i.e. the language in which battle is called Demban, as it is true in Toba. This designation is easily explained from the custom in the inhabitants to draw strangers' attention to the difference in dialect by quoting a word which represents something, such as battle, that lies close to his heart. The first lesson I enjoyed from a learned Batak was an enumeration of the words for battle, in which he particularly impressed on my mind that I was not to imagine that I would ever have a chance of becoming a master of all the dialects used in the various territories, and brought home to me that there were in fact several dozen dialects to be learned. The following are the names of the various kinds of languages. Andung, i.e. Andung, i.e. the language used by women wailing over a corpse. It consists of elaborate expressions which are sometimes archaic words and at other times circumscriptions, which by means of the prefix C acquire the form of a proper name, i.e. e.g. Simanjojak, the one that strides instead of part leg. In Mandarin especially, texts are composed in Andung in which the writer bemoans his unhappy fate, accuses his parents of cruelty as they did not want to take him with them to the other world, and so on. In stories, generous use is made of Andung words. This even applies to Poda C3. Ops. This kind of language is not used. This kind of language is not in use entirely. 2. Hata ni begusiar, i.e. the language a person speaks while his personality is replaced by that of a dead person in whose name he then speaks. Here also the words are often circumscriptions. 3. Hata Poda, i.e. the language of instruction used in the back books, which mostly give instruction in various kinds of divination. Many of the words are not in ordinary use, for example, the names of the 8 points of the compass, all of which have been borrowed from Sanskrit instead of using habit sarat, the place of the rising of the sun, the east, is then called purba. Each kind of divination has terms peculiar to it. The reason for this is not always known. Moreover, in many territories, some kinds of divination are no longer in use, so that in many places a book dealing with such forms cannot be understood if they have not been seen in practice. For example, in the Pamodilon, the art of shooting with a gun, in which instruction is given as though that art were a form of divination. The word padusi, men woman, is used instead of rabuk, gunpowder, and darah gumugu, Malayu, darah gumugu, thundering bolt, instead of tarotok, heart-beating place. Hata Todung is a less formal name for the Hata Buddha and is also used in a narrower sense, namely when one speaks of an allegory which is not so much concerned with work, but deals with matters of less weight, such as e.g. the loss of some property, and which is not carried out so much by consulting the book. Hata Pangarak Sound. This is the elaborate language which the Datu, theologian, diviner, magician, and doctor, all in one, uses for invoking the spirits or on festive occasions when he speaks of inanimate objects as ladies and gentlemen who acquire them taken from one or other of the qualities of the object. For example, si Raja Magtalidan, Prince Brown to each other crosswise of the course of the kettle drum, instead of Tarik Negordang. Si Aji Maghilo-hilo, Prince Flickerer, instead of Abi Fire. In this kind of language, the objects represented as women are usually called Sidayang, the young lady such and such. Hata Taba's language of martyred invocation. The words are not only archaic, but are very often quite incomprehensible. Precisely because of this, they are incomprehensibly powerful. No pagan Batak knows the meaning of Bismillahi from Arabic Malay, Bismillahi. Hatani Partodung, the language used by the chamber gatherers, i.e. the language they must use in order to be successful in finding the chamber, which is so difficult to locate. Ops. In hunting and fishing too, the use of certain words is forbidden and they must be replaced by others. Through contact with the more civilized Malays, the Batak language has borrowed many words from Malay. Sanskrit words have not been taken directly into Batak but through a Malay-speaking people because such words have in their form the appearance of having first been corrupted by a language that has been the sound laws of Java or Malay. In Mandailing, many words have been taken from Minangkabau, especially from the Minangkabau the adjacent of Rao. In this phonetic system, Batak is most closely related to Malagasy C33 North End, but in its grammar to Old Javanese Kawi and Tagalog. The relationship with Nias consists of only a few words, of which most are also in the sister languages. Formerly, however, Batak must have had more words in common with Nias. The literature consists of prescriptions poda dealing with definition, stories, invocations to the spirits, laments and dung, deities and the long-winded poems such as for example the Simagagang Gaol and narrative readers Tokhanan. The larger part is in prose, into which, however, a great number of short verses are introduced. There are no translations from other languages, and where a Batak text has the appearance of having been borrowed from another language, the color is so Batak that only a proper name here and there betrays the foreign influence. For our knowledge of the language and the Batak and the people, the stories are the most important because the persons who play a part in them frequently occur speaking. The prescriptions in divination are of much importance for our knowledge of the dialects because in almost every territory one finds texts on this type of literature. The stories, laments, ditties, narrative readers, and poems are mostly written on bamboo. One finds very few stories written on barks, on bark. The prescriptions on divination are usually written on bark. The bark books are called pustaha, the pronunciation of Sanskrit pustaka or Lobian Lapihin in diary it is not improbable that the oldest literature of Batak people consists of writings on divination. In Mandaling, the stories which are interleaded with Andung words and are narrated in a sing-song manner are called turiturian, while those which are couched in the daily language and are spoken in an ordinary way are called kobaran. Laws are seldom found written down, and neither of orations, which would certainly be the most beautiful part of Batak literature. The Batak, especially the Toba Batak, devotes much effort to their composition. Because there is no division of labor, everyone does almost every task in his turn, with the result that every Batak knows his own language better than does someone who belongs to a cultivated nation. One can therefore safely consult them about the names of the most diverse things, for example, about the names of plants, birds, fishes, the parts of a building, shooting terms, etc. Because the Batak, when he is not dealing with divination, does not take into account the difference between the written and the spoken language, he writes it more easily and better than do many people of an educated nation who are chained to a traditional language form. In Mandarin, the native, under the influence of school teachers and interpreters, some of whom are foreigners appointed by officials, is on his way to learning to write his language badly. In the government schools too, In the government schools, too much authority is ascribed to the Bataks who have become Muslims, and as new converts seek as much as possible to side with Malay words. Hence, these little school books that are given to the young, and which will inadvertently slowly bring the pagans completely under the influence of the Muslims.